Hey everybody, welcome to your horoscopes for this week. These are the horoscopes for the week ending April 30th, 2016. We're at the very last week of April, and the next week we're in May. We've got 5 retrograde planets, count them, 5 planets in retrograde this week when Mercury goes into retrograde at some point this week for the next 3 weeks. Now all the other planets have already gone retrograde, some of them last week. Mercury is just kind of sort of the tip of this iceberg here, and we're going to find out who's the most affected by these retrogrades, and we're going to go ahead and get right to it as we start, as we always do, with Aries. Now, of course, your ruling planet of Mars is retrograde. It went retrograde last week, and having your own ruling planet in retrograde does kind of sort of make you feel a little bit sluggish. But especially as Mars and Saturn are both in trine position with Uranus, and Venus, who will be also in conjunct with Uranus at the beginning of this week, you may find this slowing down process a little bit more difficult to bear, as that even though this is a very positive aspect, it's really actually giving you a reason why this slowdown is necessary. Sometimes you gotta slow things down or maybe feel that sluggishness a little bit in order to rejuvenate yourself a little bit and be able to see what's going on a little bit clearer. Now, of course, Uranus is still squared with Pluto, and Pluto is also retrograde. Now, the only planet that you're dealing with that's not retrograde is Uranus, which is in your own sign right now, and of course Venus, who's going to be in your sign throughout the rest of the week. So this is a very difficult aspect, because Pluto's retrograde makes it very difficult for you to make any kind of changes when it comes to what you're doing about your goals and dreams all throughout the week. So this sluggishness on top of this inability to change really is frustrating, and of course you're going to feel that the effects of that Mars frustration in these two aspects. Now the good news is as the week comes to an end, the moon moves into position to make Uranus and Mars trine a grand sextile for a day. And that brings in some fresh relationships with some fresh new outlooks and a little bit of energy to really boost you forward when it comes to these dreams and goals. So my best advice for you guys this week is to take this sluggish period as a sign. You need to kind of slow down a little bit. You need to kind of take a little bit of self-care there, and maybe, just maybe, you need a break, because I know you Rams are always going 10,000 miles a minute, and even you need a break every once in a while. So you guys have a great week with that. Taurus, happy birthday to all the bulls born this week, especially my dad, whose birthday is today. And of course, he's the big 60 today, so happy birthday to Grateful Dave. I hope that you are having a fantastic day and that your birthday just keeps on going and going with birthday blessings, because everybody deserves at least a week for their birthday to enjoy their day, their special day, especially when it's such a big birthday this year for you. Now, Mercury is going retrograde this week, and it is a full Taurus retrograde, so we know that Mercury is all about miscommunication when he goes retrograde, and we're talking about really stubborn miscommunications when he goes retrograde, being that it's in full Taurus. Now, this is all about, especially for you Tauruses, this is all about being a little bit more open to other possibilities rather than just really thinking that things need to go the way that you plan them to go. And this is really, really important. You gotta release that control. Otherwise, the communication, especially around your career, the more you try to push it to be your way, the more things are going to fall apart, and you don't want that to happen. You want to try to avoid that as much as possible. Now, the sun is, of course, full on in your sign, and with Mercury, is in a grand Earth trine again with Jupiter and Pluto. Jupiter and Pluto both being retrograde. So now you've got 3 retrogrades to deal with. But a grand Earth trine is a really powerful thing and a really good thing, because it's really going to give you this energy to get things moving and to get things done. But these retrogrades are kind of sort of slowing you down, if you know what I mean. So it kind of feels like you're trying to wade through quicksand a little bit. And that is not, it's a very frustrating feeling to have to go through that. But the lesson here is to slow down. Of course, with retrogrades, we want to slow things down and look at our reflection. Look at these things and find out what it is we're trying to to move through very quickly so that we can avoid anything that we need to learn from the situation. This is not going to work for you guys this week, I'm afraid. You're going to have to face the lesson and really understand what this lesson is teaching you. And if you do that, I'm telling you, the rewards are better than you even thought would be possible at all. So this week, tap into that energy of moving forward, but also take yourself a step back and avoid the need to move forward quite so quickly. Because the truth is, if you're worried about past failures or you're worried about things not being able to change, the more you try to force these things to happen, the more they're not going to change, and the more you're going to keep seeing those past difficulties coming up around you. You want a clean slate, you want to be able to get moving forward, and you're going to have to do that by making some changes. So you guys have a great week with that. Gemini, the bonds of love and support are definitely with you this week, and it's really, really important to make the most of these bonds at this time, especially when it comes to building relationships around your career goals. Now, there is no I in team. We all know that there's no I in team, and those of us born under the air element signs have a tendency to think that we are supposed to do all the work, and everybody that's quote-unquote helping, just does the little stuff, right? But that's really not how it works. And this week for you Geminis, it's all about really building that solid foundation of support and team when it comes to these particular goals. Not only that, but it's also important to build that not just on a career base, but on a personal base at the same time. Getting together and really getting to know and really getting to understand these people that you're working with is really powerful because it builds a very strong foundation for success. And being able to really connect with these people outside of your career goals is going to make what happens in those career goals absolutely amazing. So this week you really want to take that time to really pay attention and to really strengthen those bonds with those people that you work with. Because as you're doing that, you're actually building something even more amazing than the relationship itself. And there really is no limit to what you guys can do. So you guys have a great week with that. Cancers, it is out with the old and in with the new this week. Now, when you're going through stuff, let's just say in your physical environment, cleaning out that closet, you're going to pull out all kinds of stuff that you probably haven't looked at, haven't seen, probably didn't even know you still had it because you haven't seen it in years. And it's time to let that junk go. And by doing this on an external level inside your environment, you're also helping yourself and opening up this part of yourself on an internal level that helps you get rid of that old junk at the same time. They sort of parallel each other. And this week for you guys, getting rid of that stuff, physically cleaning something out and organizing that space and getting rid of those things that are no longer serving you helps you at the same time while you're doing this to clean out this old stuff that's going on inside of you at the same time. A lot of this stuff is attached to different past experiences that maybe you just need to let go of at this time. Or maybe this stuff is reminding you of past experiences that you need to let go of this time. Either way, when it comes to the internal emotional self and its chaotic mess, because we all have that, and our external chaotic mess, they reflect each other. And it's really, really important to have both come together and be a little bit cleaner, a little bit freer, and a little bit more open to something new. Something that maybe you can use, or something that maybe is going to bring you a different feeling other than those same old feelings. So this week, do yourself a favor and clean out that space. Clean out that closet. Clean out whatever it is that you need to clean out. And by choosing just one space, you are actually cleaning out something rather than putting it off for an eternity or however long that's going to be. So just choose one space this week. Get it cleaned out. Allow yourself to feel the emotions of the stuff that you're getting rid of and throw those emotions away along with the stuff. I guarantee you're going to feel great by the time it's done. So you guys have a great week with that. Leo, it's all about taking care of you this week, and self-care is not just something that's kind of nice every once in a while. It is mandatory. I mean mandatory on a daily basis to practice self-care. Now, when I say practice self-care, I do mean taking time for you. While you're at the grocery store with the kids, kind of sort of getting out of the house is not really taking time for you. Number one, you're taking care of a responsibility by getting food for the house. And number two, you got your kids there. You're not alone. This isn't self-care. I'm talking about at least a half an hour to yourself every single day, whether you're meditating, whether you're taking a bubble bath, whether you're just separating yourself from the world, just long enough to be able to take some time for you. And I'm not talking about time in front of the TV either. I'm talking about something that really is going to make you feel better by the time you're done with this half hour of self-care. Yeah, the TV and the electronics and everything are cool, but this is not really what I'm talking about. It's not going to pump you up. It's not going to put you in the mindset that you need to be in order to achieve whatever it is that you want to achieve right now. It's actually kind of a waste of time. True self-care is something that you do for yourself and your own physical, mental, and emotional health. Whether it is something that relaxes you, something that uplifts you, or maybe it's just unplugging from the whole world for a while, long enough to kind of sort of quiet what's going on in your brain. And it's definitely necessary. The more you do this week, the less you will have to deal with situations that are going to force you to take this self-care. Because if you don't do it, these situations are going to become so overwhelming for you that you're not going to know how to get out of it. So this is why it's important. This week, it's really time to lay down a schedule of self-care for yourself. A half an hour every day for whatever it is that you want to do for you. By doing this for yourself, you're not only giving something to yourself, you're teaching those around you that it's important for them at the same time. And then you're also teaching those people that it's important for them to learn how to take care of themselves for a whole half hour. I know it's a lot to ask, but really it's not a lot of time. And that half hour for you and for them is going to be very significant to everybody's growth all the way around. So you guys have a great week with that. Virgo, as Jupiter is amongst two very big aspects this week, it's going to give you a very clear choice on what you want to focus on. Whether you want to focus on the negative and the difficulties, whether you want to focus on the positive of the situation. We're going to start with the negative, of course, just to kind of sort of get it out of the way, because Jupiter is still in this T-square position with Neptune and Saturn and Mars and Jupiter all being in retrograde position. Now all of these retrogrades are really going to slow progress down for you, and really, especially with Mars involved, he's going to make things seem like they're slowing down to darn near non-existent, especially when it comes to rectifying some situations around your finances and in some cases your relationships. Now you can dwell on this challenge, you can dwell on it all day long, it's really not going to help you, which is why we move to the more positive aspect as Jupiter moves into grand Earth trine position with the Sun and Pluto. Now Pluto's also retrograde, and Mercury has gone retrograde this week at the same time and is in trine position with Pluto. So we got retrogrades everywhere basically. But these retrogrades really slow things down. You've got this T-square that's slowing things down. Now you've got this really positive, very powerful aspect that's slowing things down too. And there's a reason for that. Slowing things down gives you an opportunity to see things a lot more clearly than you can, say, when you're going at a situation full speed ahead. As you're going full speed ahead, you're not seeing the challenges, you're not seeing the obstacles, you're trying to run past them in the hopes that they won't hold you back. And what winds up happening with that is they do hold you back because you didn't see them, so of course you didn't address them, so of course they're going to catch up with you. They're going to run after you until they catch you, and they catch you every time. Now it's time to take some time to slow down and deal with these obstacles one at a time. As you do this, you have a better chance of success because you're dealing with the problem before you move on to either the next problem or what you need to do in order to get that success. So this week, make a choice. Are you going to dwell on the difficulties, or are you going to deal with the difficulties? Dealing with the difficulties is going to get you where you want to go, and avoiding the difficulties is, of course, going to keep you where you are. And you don't want to do that again. So you guys have a great week with that. Libra. All right, you guys, we all know how brilliant you are and how many brilliant ideas are going around and around in that head of yours. So this week, it's time to do something with those ideas. They're not going to do anything while they're roaming around in your head. Nobody knows about them. You know about them, but you're not doing anything. They're just kind of sort of sitting there. Well, this week it's time to take at least one of those ideas and put it into motion. After all, stuck in your head, there's no way to see what this idea can produce for you in your physical world. And also, on top of that, you got a head full of ideas. You're not doing anything about them. It's just going to make you frustrated. And who wants to be frustrated for no reason, right? I mean, we have plenty of reasons to be frustrated. So why be the reason for ourselves? That's your goal this week. So this week, take some of those ideas, even the big scary ones. Let's take two. A little one that's not scary and a big one that is scary, and just put it into motion. And remember that nothing amazing comes out of staying in your comfort zone. You got to get out of that baby and take some risk in order to really make things happen and in order to really grab onto success. So you guys have a great week with that. Scorpio, the dark moon in your sign this week has you itching to make changes, especially when it comes to your home. And it can be very frustrating when the changes that you want to make are just not feasible right now and you can't make them. Let's use moving from one place to another as an example. If this is the change that you want to make and you really want to move to a new place but you just can't do it, it's very frustrating. And what's going to happen all throughout the week is you can't make this change is you're going to get more and more and more frustrated and take it out on different aspects of your life. We all do it. It's not just a Scorpio thing. So this week, when you really want to make a change that you just can't make right now because it's not possible, put that energy into something that you can change. I always used to rearrange rooms because when I was growing up, we moved at least once a year as a kid. So I was really in this pattern of needing to change my space over and over and over again. So I would take that out on the living room and rearrange the living room so that it looked different. Now, one, this gave me an outlet for that energy that needed to change, and it did make things a lot better. And two, it gave me a brand new space to enjoy. So I am actually making a change. I may not have moved out of my house, but at least my environment has changed so it kind of sort of looks brand new, and I'm tricking myself a little bit. But it gives you an outlet for that energy, and it also allows you to do something productive rather than letting the frustration keep you inactive, because of course you don't want to do that. So this week, change what you can and don't worry too much about the things that you can't change, because the more negativity you put into that, the more you're not going to be able to change the situation, or the longer it's going to take for you to do that. So you guys have a great week with that. Sagittarius, the moon is going to kick off this week in your sign in conjunction with Mars and Saturn, which means she's very much a part of that T-square that Mars and Saturn have with Neptune and Jupiter at the beginning of this week. And of course, this means that the emotions are going to run high with these difficulties, especially as it feels like you're in the same old situation you've always been and there's no end in sight to getting out of this particular predicament. And it's very much financial based and in some cases relationship based. Now it's very frustrating, and of course Mars being in retrograde, it is going to make it even more frustrating, especially with Mars being in your sign. And if this has anything to do with your own responsibilities or taking care of your own responsibilities, it's definitely going to give you a reason to justify why you can't take care of those responsibilities, especially with Saturn also in retrograde. Now, of course, it's not all bad news, because the moon at the beginning of the week also joins Mars and Saturn's trine position with Uranus and Venus. And this is all about the dreams and goals that are really closest to your heart, the things that mean the most to you. And what this is trying to teach you right now is that the more you spend time focused on the things that, maybe you've been trying to change, but you can't change, the more you're taking away from your ultimate goals. And it's also showing you that there's a possibility here, just a slight possibility, that all that focus on the things that are negative is getting in the way of you being able to make any positive movement. The bottom line here is that Whether it's your issue or a family issue or you're stuck with somebody else's issue, the more you harp on it, the more you complain, and the more you try and force a change in the situation, the more the situation is going to stay stagnant and stay the same. You need to put that energy into something else. So rather than spending time focusing on the difficult situation, focus on what you can do about it. And really have that faith in yourself that you can make a difference. Because trust me, you can. You don't have to solve everybody else's problems, because right now it's time for you to focus on yours. So you guys have a great week with that. Capricorn, Pluto being in retrograde position and squared, of course, with Uranus and Venus at the beginning of the week. She's going to move out of that by the end of the week. But at the beginning of the week, it's really going to feel, especially with Pluto being in retrograde, that you can't make changes to your schedule when it comes to achieving these goals. Especially goals that are really, really, really important to you with Venus in that aspect. That's kind of the bad news, right? Because when you think about it, you Capricorns, you just want to get things done. And this week is really going to throw some wrenches in that schedule, so it's really going to make it difficult for you to get things done. Now let's not spend too much time focusing on that, because Pluto's grand Earth trine with Mercury, also in retrograde now this week, and the Sun and Jupiter, who's also in retrograde too, is a really powerful influence for you. Now with all of these retrogrades going on, one would think that it's just all bad and you should spend this week in bed. But I don't agree with that, because what it's trying to tell you is to slow down a little bit. You earth signs just want to get moving and get going. But the truth is, sometimes you have to slow down and observe the situation, learn from your past mistakes. And Jupiter's placement in this aspect really brings out those past issues. Remember, for instance, those times where you really try to do something, you put your all into it, you put everything that you had into it, and it just didn't work. Well, the lesson here is to not repeat that same mistake. The mistake being putting everything into it and trying to force it to be what you want it to be. You kind of got to let the energy kind of sort of move itself in the direction that it needs to go. And of course, let the universe, or allow the universe, to take part in that too. It's always better that way. Mercury's placement in this particular aspect for you guys is all about holding back your communication when it comes to your career goals. Especially you want to shine in your career. Of course you want to shine in your career, and in some cases you got to hold back what you feel you need to say, especially this week, and especially if it's something that may not be something that's going to help out the situation, if you know what I mean. So hold back that communication, hold back that need to be pessimistic or critical in this particular situation, because if you do that, things are going to run a whole lot more smoothly for you. If you don't do that, you're looking at a typical Mercury retrograde miscommunication from hell, and you don't want that. So you guys have a great week with that. Aquarius, focus is on your relationships this week, and this is really important, a really important focus for most Aquarians. A lot of Aquarians tend to be kind of hermits and loners, and they like to tend to be by themselves, but of course, building solid relationships is really important as well. Now, typically, and I said this with Gemini earlier, but typically most air elements have this tendency to think that they have to do everything, they have to do all the work, and they have to be solely responsible for their dream, because it is their dream, right? Well, that is true, but at the same time, sometimes it takes a village, and if you've got a really, really, really big dream, you're definitely going to need that village. So this week is all about cementing those relationships that are part of that village. Not just your professional relationships, but your personal relationships as well. Because each one plays a very important role in what's going on with you. And when it comes down to it, those personal relationships are the ones that are really going to be there for you when you just can't take what's going on in your professional life right now. And you have to be able to toggle back and forth, because all work and no play is no fun at all. So this week, spend some time building those relationships, being a part of those relationships, and really, most important, having fun with those relationships, because the truth is, that really is what life is all about, and everything else is just gravy on the side. So you guys have a great week with that. And finally, Pisces, as Neptune moves into grand sextile position with the Sun and Pluto this week, you're going to find some amazing energy towards your career goals and shining in what it is that you want to do. Now, unfortunately though, as good as this aspect is and as good as the energy is, it's definitely going to cause aggravation to that T-square that Mercury's already in with Jupiter, Saturn, and Mars this week, unfortunately. Because Saturn and Mars are really in a place where if you take those risks and step out of, the norm, it's almost going to feel like you're stepping out of your responsibility into another aspect of your life. And of course, Neptune being in that financial place is making things difficult also. But the truth is, these two aspects working together are teaching you a very powerful lesson. When something comes up, you've got to go for it. And unfortunately, you can't wait until you're financially stable, because it's never going to happen if you're waiting specifically for that. Every once in a while in life, you've got to take risks. And this week is definitely one of those weeks where risk taking is needed. If you don't take that risk, you don't know what you could possibly be achieving, towards your career goals and things like that. So this week, don't worry about the responsibility aspects of things. You do take care of your responsibilities. And as long as you've always taken care of your responsibilities, taking some time to focus on your career responsibilities is also important. And don't let anybody tell you any different. If they do try to tell you, you send them right back to the Heavy Metal Psychic and I'll tell them for you. So you guys have a great week with that. Thanks so much for listening to the horoscopes this week. I'm Melissa Bruce, the Heavy Metal Psychic. Don't forget to check out our links and all the good stuff that we have. And of course, we'll have that link for heavymetalpsychic.com as soon as she's ready. But we're still trying to make it as awesome as possible. Again, I'm Melissa Bruce, the Heavy Metal Psychic. Thank you for watching. And you guys have a great week. I'll see you next week.